Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Capsa. Today we will understand about spontaneous generation theory. So life has always fascinated humans, and one of the oldest question in science has been, where does new life come from? For centuries, many people believed in the idea of spontaneous generation, which is the belief that living organisms could arise from the non-living matter. The theory of spontaneous generation was first clearly explained by Aristotle 384 322 BC. He proposed that if non living material contained a vital heat, which he called Pneuma, life could emerge from it. For example, he used the appearance of fish in puddles or frogs after the flooding of the Nile as an evidence. This belief continued for almost 2000 years. People thought that mice came from stored grain or that maggots arose from rotting meat. In the 17th century, Jean Baptista van Helmont suggested that mice could arise if a dirty shirt and wheat were kept in an open container for near about 3 weeks. Of course, what really happened was that the food and shelter actually attracted the mice. But at the time, this was seen as a proof of spontaneous generation. The first strong challenge came from Francesco Redi in 1668. He performed a very simple experiment with meat in jars. In jars left open, maggots appeared. In jars sealed completely, no maggots appeared. In jars covered with gauze, maggots appeared only on the gauze but not on the meat. So Redi concluded that maggots came from the eggs of the flies, not from the meat itself. This was one of the first experiments to disprove the spontaneous generation. Later in 1745, John Needham boiled the broth, sealed the container, and after a few days saw microbial growth. He argued that this was proof of spontaneous generation, claiming that life force in the broth had created the life. However, the problem was that he did not boil the broth long enough and microorganisms actually survived. In 1760s, Lazzaro Spallanzani repeated the experiment but boiled the broth more thoroughly. In sealed flasks, no microbial growth occurred, while in open flasks, microbes appeared. Spallanzani concluded that microorganisms came from the air, not from the broth itself. However, critics argued that his sealing process had destroyed the so called vital force, and so the debate continued. The final and most famous experiment was conducted by Louis Pasteur in the 1850s and 1860s. He used specifically designed Swan neck flasks filled with broth. The long carved neck allowed the air to enter but trapped the dust and microbes in the bent portion. The broth remained sterile for months as long as the neck was intact. When the neck was broken, microbes entered and the broth became contaminated. Pasteur concluded that microorganisms came from other microorganisms, not from non living matter. He declared omni vivium ex vivo, which means life comes only from life. Pasteur's experiment finally disproved the theory of spontaneous generation and gave birth to the principle of biogenesis. The discovery also opened the way for the germ theory of disease and the modern microbiology. So, in conclusion, we can say that spontaneous generation was once widely believed, But carefully designed experiments by Redi, Spallanzani, and Pasteur showed that life does not arise from non living matter. Instead, all life originates from existing life. This was a turning point in science, proving the importance of experimentation in answering fundamental questions. So that was the today's lecture. If you like this video, please do like, comment, share with your friends. Thank you for staying with me.